set up a second tour with you, Tracy, and any of the selectmen that didn't make the first tour.
Okay. And assume that you want to do it for a weekday?
Whenever you're available. And Chief Fowler is very accommodating, so he'll make time to be said.
Okay. I'll send around an email and figure out and mark it and float it to others. I mean, it's best to go see what we're trying to do. So I'd like to hear any comments from anybody, takeaways.
But it was a great tour. He did a super job, really, door by door, space by space.
Yeah.
And it was helpful to hear some about the process that they did, and things that they felt were essential, things that he advised we make sure we think about early on.
Okay. Can those be captured somewhere, or maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think I took a lot of notes. I
You
think
sure did.
I think Alan did as well. So, you know, maybe between the two of us, we can, you know, write those up and, you know, at least have a summary.
It doesn't have to be a new book, but maybe just a couple of bullet points, because it certainly would be good to share those and have some reference to go back on.
Yeah, I like the recess, or the raised floor for one.
Absolutely.
The drive through
Yes.
Sallyport.
Yeah.
The eye wash in the Sallyport to take care of people who had pepper spray or anything else on them. I was very impressed with the holding cells, even though the price I thought was kind of steep.
How many did they have?
7. And I don't know whether Mike or you guys were even thinking about having a jailer's room. So that was a little extra added on to that.
Well, they need it because
Yeah.
on the weekends, those cells will be double occupancy and they'll be full. And they need somebody in there full time to watch. So that's a necessity for them.
Yeah.
For Newbury, no, that's not a necessity for us. So those are the type of spaces that we can compromise on, but I thought that the tour was very informative on the essential spaces and the proprietary things that every police department needs. And to show people that aren't acclimated with, you know, a police facility that it's not just like building an office building. You know, it's not just office space. There needs to be a lot of redundancy, and there needs to be a lot of security, and a lot of the proprietary things are just different from any other type of construction job.
Did the chief mention, unfortunately, that now that it's done, that there was something that he wished he had, or he gave up on, or now that he's seeing it?
He didn't.
The garage.
There was one item that they're working on that had to do with the technology of a particular area, but it wasn't a failure because they could add it to the system.
Oh, you're right, the
The
garage.
garage was one thing, he wanted a 6 or 8 car garage, as I recall, and he got a 2.
Yeah.
But he cordoned off one part of it so it could be used as an evidence garage,
Yeah,
and then they put a
that
Sally
covered storage
back.
made up for that, what
Yeah.
it covered became, and that's really their
So we might have
company and stuff like that.
to be creative in the plan in terms of the designers and program. If there is something that we're on the border of, it could easily be added, and it can be done early in the design, then it's something we might have to think about. We'll have to figure that out.
Right, I mean, for example, he recommended that we put conduit in the walls of the holding cells, even if we're not going to electrify the doors right now, but you can't do it later, so you should do it in advance.
You don't want surface conduit.
Right, right.
Just to give you an idea, the value of 4 more garage spaces and the cost of that covered shed was $150,000 at bid time. You wouldn't get it for $150,000 after bid time. So they got a lot of value at bid time for the lost, completely covered doors that just got up back. So it's a good VE item, because you get vehicles that maybe you don't have to have quite so in undercover or in closed areas.
And I think the money was well spent in the dispatch area.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you can't communicate properly with everybody, then you've lost a significant part of your operation, and he did a very thorough job in there with the console stations.
Right, I mean, that's 24/7. It was very ergonomic, very well thought out. The consoles were amazing.
The finishes in there were very simple,
Very
very
simple.
clean.
All right, so that's my next question without you two guys. For you guys, what was your opinion of the level of quality or the level of finish? Is it what you expected? Was it
The
okay?
quality of the building was super. I think, you know, I would expect the same quality, just in a smaller scale. But as far as smart features, absolutely, like Ron said, the false floor in the dispatch center. You know, there was about a 3 or 4 inch space beneath the floor, so you could fish
massive wires all over the place, like a spaghetti factory.
And, cost would obviously have to be looked at. One feature I really liked was the safe haven door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like a good idea. I mean, I've known young ladies that have been followed, and it's a level of safety for the person running to the station. It's a level of safety for dispatch to be able to lock that door behind the person.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we'd have to look at cost, but I mean, such a smart and good feature to have.
Right. I think
One
that was
thing-
a little bit of an afterthought, wasn't it? That they
It did
were-
come as an extra,
Yeah,
but
so,
it was well thought out.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, very good.
Yeah.
The one thing that surprised me, that the dispatch room
Mhm.
was only had ballistic protection on the interior and not the street side.
Right, that
Right.
surprised me
That-
too.
Well, I think they thought it through, that wall's 12 inches thick. The glass.
Is it masonry?
It's, not masonry, on the bottom is masonry, but between the sheetrock, the studs, the plywood, the dense glass, the rated, the 3 inches of insulation, and then the cement board, I think they felt it was
That's
adequate.
sufficient.
Now, it's not gonna stop a high,
Right.
Yeah.
it was,
No, no, it
in the
was-
BR glass, well, they showed it, was it a snub nose bullet?
The flat caliber, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that
it
was
was
the
flattened by the
That was the interior.
BR sheetrock, but that's all supposed to stop.
Mhm.
Not gonna
Yeah.
stop a
There's
big
something
guy.
called-
No, no, absolutely.
Test.
But I didn't realize that the exterior wall had that much in it.
Except in those windows.
That's my
Parking lot.
next
The
my
windows-
next question.
Just shoot the
Windows,
windows out.
regular glass?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's, I don't know,
Yeah,
you all have to think
Surprised
about
me
that,
too.
but that was one thing that, for me, anyway,
Yeah.
it was a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Especially on a busy street like that.
Yeah, drive by.
Yeah.
But getting back to the finishes, I thought there was nothing fancy. I mean, it was
No,
all just very straightforward stuff.
It's just a
Yeah.
chair rail round, and
Yeah.
it probably could've gone a little higher for the gun belts going by, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
that's all it was. It's
That's
fire rated
just the
sheetrock
colors.
pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere because of the
Right,
fire
and
codes.
washable, epoxy flooring where they needed to be, where, people, there might be blood or vomit or something like that.
Mhm.
I didn't see anything that
The only
was
place to carpet
extravagant.
was in the so-called
And that's
office
it.
areas
Right,
for
right.
you guys upstairs,
Right.
would be, that was it. Everything else was pretty high maintenance,
Yeah.
easy going.
Right.
And I think it really, for me anyway, it really emphasized the fact that it is a very specialized space with specialized requirements and regulatory things that you have to incorporate into this, that you don't have in an office building or an academic building.
Did the chief mention anything about designers or the process, or was it really, was it more focused on a room by room sort of tour
Well,
of space?
he did both,
Yeah.
but, more.
And he's more than willing to come to any of these meetings and discuss the process they went through and things, so.
They used HKT for the feasibility,
Okay,
and then they went, carried them through, for the full architecture. They hired Daedalus for the OPM services. Daedalus had been doing the library, so it was a good segue, although they lost the gal who was the OPM, who went back to being an architect, and they brought somebody else on board.
And they had experience building, previously, they had built police stations and designed,
HKT had done some public safety buildings, yes, right.
which obviously sounds critical in terms of
Yeah, I think it
whoever
really,
we go after, they have to have,
yeah.
I don't think it's something that a guy that designs classroom buildings can,
no, and
readily
that's
do.
the whole point of this qualifications.
Yeah.
This is an RFQ, not a P, but a Q, with the understanding that we want to select the firms to do the work that are qualified. This isn't an opportunity to select the lowest budget person because they're the lowest budget and they're gonna step up and do a great job and we're gonna get a deal. That's not the intent of why the state set this procedure up this way, and they want to make sure that people vet out and select. And so I think for the next step, for the review of the draft RFQ, that we should really start on page 8. There's the front end stuff that we can go to John. I think if you and I have some edits that we can take a first pass and bring that in line with just names of committees and some dates and things like that. But the real essence of what the committee needs to be focused on is, A, what do we want steps of what we're gonna ask them for the evaluation criteria. You have to tell them how we're gonna go about ranking them. You can't just receive stuff, go in a room and mysteriously decide. There has to be some order, and this is where, I think this is where the bulk of the editing comes in, so that it's clear that we're all on the same page, and that when we each are in front of an interview and we separately rank, that we're of like, should be of somewhat close like minds in terms of what we're coming back. It's not supposed to be a slam dunk, but on the other hand, if we're all confused in sort of the criteria of evaluation and points and how the whole system works, then, we're not gonna, as a group, select the best qualified firm to do it.
Do we know what the cost was per square foot on that building? The Salisbury one?
600 and some bucks.
600 what,
Project
and
cost.
7?
Project cost, not construction cost.
Right.
Construction cost is just over 400.
Or something.
Yeah. So it was 18,000 feet, it was within a couple of feet, and it was 11.2 million. And the construction budget was 8485.
So you said what, 409 or
4 something, 420 something or something like that, you can do it pretty quick.
close enough?
Yeah, so you can work, and then the total for the whole project. Or 2 something and 4 something, I mean, would you like to check it out, Eric?
No, but it's always what we carried, we were around 18,000 square feet and 11.5 million total
That's right.
project cost as
Over
well,
there,
for a combined
Yep.
facility of fire and police, so we would assume that the specialty-ness of those, of our two entities match their larger size cost.
Remember what we do in the town hall equals their extra office, so-called space.
Yeah, he had 8.5 million for construction and 2 million for civil costs, so it was 17,997 square feet, I think.
Just under the 18,000 limit. So I quickly did something, so whatever.
Right, and so the metrics that we're gonna be under those, if you divide all those out and come out with percentages, we're gonna be a little bit less than those. That's just where we're at, and so we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with that, and we're gonna have to see how interested certain parties are to do this job. And that's one big decision that will have to be made in terms of how we present the project of what we're assuming is the construction cost and what we're assuming is the soft cost when we advertise.
I'd like to say that because of the size of Salisbury and the magnitude of the specialty of it, we're gonna drive that square foot cost down because we don't near that much of that robust area at the back.
True, but there's no such thing as a small project, and so if you don't have redundancy and repetitiveness, then your square footage costs go up in terms of specialty per square foot if we don't have.
You don't have the volume to offset it.
Right.
That's true too.
But I think, we'll prove that out in design when we have the numbers, and we have something real to look at in dollars to be placed against. So on page 8 of the submission package, part number 5, talks about, we have a certain format and like to be as clear in English as we can be, so that when hopefully we have at least 4 or 5 of these submittals, that they're actually the same. Getting too much information is detrimental to the review process. Getting a stack of paper this high and trying to read them all is troublesome. Having them be in equal order where you can actually take 2 and sort of look at them at the same time in the same order is very helpful. And again, if there's a way to sort of control it by, and that's what this is attempting to do, is limit them by pages, so that when you can lay out 4 or 5
So if you have notes, in my OPM ones, I'd say 15 pages, that's it, you probably get the same thing.
Right.
Not 15, but, appropriate size for an architect firm.
You leave an architect to his own devices and he'll submit you 60 pages of stuff with photos and more stuff that,
Mhm.
that
I don't want 15 pages of number 8 size font either, so maybe we should do a limitation on the.
They'll say it's two-sided or one-sided.
the tabs included in the page count,
Oh, blank,
But they should be, in terms of a cover letter, able, single page, to give us the bullet points, quickly introduce themselves, tell us their pertinent experience in a paragraph, make a point of, from the key person for this firm, and put it all on one page. So that's like the introduction cover letter. Then D, which I think is very important, is the previous project experience. And what we're asking for here is a one-page sort of office summary, and then 2 pages per project. And I don't know if I put a limit on,
Yeah.
1 page max for each additional project,
Up to 5.
up to 5.
Mhm.
Obviously, if they've done 5 projects, and the way projects usually go, and the amount of these projects, I mean, something done in 2000 is starting to fade in terms of its relevance of cost and size of what was done. But on the other hand, there's not 100 of these going up, like housing projects. So,
So, Eric, is this for specific projects or any projects that they've done? Are we looking for, 5 police stations or public safety facilities?
I think it's
I know, I read it someplace in there, but I wasn't,
Bullet point number 10,
okay,
public safety police.
public safety police, okay. So we're looking for 5 of those.
right, and the thing here, I think, is the firm should, and I can't say that they have to, but they should have done a police station. It would be good that they've done some public safety buildings. It would be good that they have town hall experience. Could a firm that's done 5 fire stations and 1 police station stack up to someone that's done 3 police stations? That's the apples and oranges that we're gonna have to decide against.
Yep.
And I would say that hopefully, in organizing this, when the people come to present and we see who actually is presenting and who they are saying is going to be on the team, it's 60% the understanding the people that you're gonna work with on the project, and it's probably 40% of seeing what the firm did. The people at the table at the end, you usually haven't done everything that in the proposal.
Right.
But we're gonna have a long working relationship with the entity, the firm, and the people of that firm. And so if the firm's done great work, but we get a jerk or somebody that rubs off on us the wrong way,
Right.
it's not the
That we
person I
also
wanna work
want.
with.
Yeah.
And I think that's just
The
common
normal
sense.
process, the chemistry.
Right, because we need, right. So,
So if we're asking for, the only reason I'm asking is if we're asking for 5 projects, it's just projects.
for 5 projects,
Okay.
and we're trying to tell them that, the
Yeah,
more.
in the body, as Otto said, in the bullet 10, basically does say public safety experience.
Right,
If you don't have any public safety, you're probably gonna go way down the bottom before you get brought back up again.
and we need to add town hall.
Town hall, yeah.
Are you the master of edits, or?
It can be if you want.
I think we're still at the point that everyone needs to read this, and everyone needs to deliver at least 1 copy of edits. Nobody gets off the hook of passing. So in order to get to the next stage, which we'd like to do fairly quickly, the task is that you've got to read through this, make edits, hand in your copy. We need to compile them, and then we'll have 1 copy that we're gonna hopefully tweak and then be done with.
Master draft.
This isn't a 4-month exercise, or hopefully it shouldn't be as we read through this. chapter 149, CM or other construction methods. John, does the OPM have to be a registered architect or a licensed
No.
engineer?
If you're an architect, you have to have so many years' experience. You can be a construction superintendent or project manager, which many people have done, and you have so many years' experience also.
Yeah, it's five.
Those are the two
5 and
options.
7, I think.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure I didn't state that they had to be in a definitive term somewhere.
I'll repeat that. And one of the things we gotta be careful of here, because I've bumped into it before, is that the firm may have had that experience, but the person that we're gonna interview for the OPM services has to be qualified that way.
Right,
There was a job not too long ago where that person had been in the field for 12 years and had never done a vertical construction job.
But the firm had
And it was
plenty of
Howard Schultz.
experience, but
The firm had great experience. And that, made for challenges for that company and the town, because the person didn't have the strength to really guide the process. Right.
That's why it's critical that we know the key people who are
Oh,
gonna be involved.
It's, Eric, it's no different than you helping an owner interview a GC. You meet with the PM and the super, and the estimating team on a CM at risk, and if that's compatible, and they got the experience to do it. And the same for the clerk. When it comes time to pick their clerk, we wanna see that same experience for being a clerk and so forth.
Okay, so E is staffing, so, references and reputation, provide, reference, in conjunction with project experience, noted above. Maybe somehow I could work in the, specifically for the staff, the staff to be assigned to the project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, making that reference is above, yeah.
D, project approach. 2 to 4 pages, here's where they give you their methodology, here's their methods, here's where they tell us what kind of technology, they bring to the table, or what, relationships they have in order to support their work.
And I don't know if it's the right place to interject that, but experience with value engineering review, I don't know if that's a good place to put that.
That would be a good place to put that.
It's a good bullet.
Experience with project cost control. Something like that. Okay. E, proposed staffing, no more than 2 pages per person. I think if you can't really sum it up on a page, two pages per person gets a little.
I think you can get 3, 4, 5 projects that they've done in their background on 1 page. Size 7 font.
Yeah, and not only for a photo or embellished or a creative resume, we're just looking for, here's 3 or 4 projects, here's, my credentials, here's my professional ability, and
Here's what my role was on this project.
right. So we'll just put that to 1 page.
Somewhere we wanna, in their approach, how they handle the other services for the client, which is your FF&E and technology. Because often the OPM is kind of orchestrating that with whoever. Whether the architect does the FF&E or an
Well,
independent.
there's, that's the preceding pages where we kind of walk through, there's the project information, which describes qualifications for the owners, minimum requirements, that talks about the licensing, here specifically what we want them to present to us. So as we go through this and understand what we're going to get back, then I can back up and reread the actual qualifications in terms of a longer description, match, and make that match.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I think what I'd like to do is get through the sort of evaluation criteria, and then we can go back to the specific qualifications, because I think once we get into that, we're into the weeds, it's very specific, and we'll never get out of it.
Yep.
We're trying to get through this whole, so that's why I'm going through the requirements, or the submittal requirements first. F, firm stability and capacity, describe the firm's history, it's just an overview. You know, hopefully they're honest, or they'll be as honest as they can try not to be. But we're asking for any kind of issues that they've had on past projects or working, and sometimes projects have had issues and they feel they weren't quite their issue, but it may be stated that way. Here's a chance to say something about it. And their ability for provide general liability insurance, workers' comp, and some of the basic requirements that we would meet for any firm.
Right, and those are standard.
Right.
Would you in either section F or A ask for an organization chart of the company? I'm just throwing that out. When you want to see what's going on with the firm, is there a place for that?
We could ask, well,
I originally put in my notes, put it in section A when I sent that in, but.
It might be beneficial when we're reviewing, you can Google some of the players and see if there's any issues.
But when they're gonna say who's
So don't do
assigned
it
to the
on Facebook.
project, you see the whole.
no, that's helpful, because usually it comes out in like a little family tree, and they'll put Newberry, and then they'll put Eric, draw lines of relationships, and so you kind of get the understanding of who, and it's, but you're really asking if is it just the staff for the project, or is it really a bigger firm overview?
Well, I was thinking back on A where it says overview of the firm, that maybe that's where the organization chart is, because then as you were mentioning, excuse me, someplace in B, talking about the staff that's assigned to the project.
Yeah, I think what we're missing is we're missing the owners of the firm, who actually is at the top and who's.
Right, principal and so forth.
Right, and then we'll understand if buying my wife owned the firm and we're not even on the project, you kind of understand the layers of how this is being presented, or where the risk of the board goes back to. I think we could work that into,
In the E? Because there'll be a principal in charge or owner in charge of that staff.
we'll put it under E.
Maybe come under F anyway. Firm's history and
Is it
ownership.
green up here?
True, but if we get a large firm in there, that owner may not be
Friendly
the principal in charge. So, let's see how they answer that. Because there are some large firms that might want to jump in on this.
All right, that might take a little work. I think I got the essence of.
Community language, what is the layer of staffing, starting at the top or something like that?
Well, we're looking more of a composition of the firm as opposed to just the people proposed for the project.
Right.
Right. Okay, I have some notes. There's some basic certificates. I guess we'll just follow up with council, those are up to date.
Yeah, I'll check that
If
with
there's anything
her.
else that needs to be put in there, and I have to check the guide to see if there's anything additional Now we're on number 6, evaluation criteria. So, we advertise, we receive submittals, we get the submittals, and the first thing we do is check to see if they've met the qualifications of the actual submittal. Once we've done that, then we evaluate and actually then rank based on the criteria that we're now going to outline and set forth below. So I think the way the process would work is we get we get all the proposals in. Everyone would be distributed a copy of the proposals. You'd have to then set time to read, become familiar with those proposals, and then, without discussing it or anything else, once we're familiar with it, we would then go and meet, and I think you could do your own general pencil ranking at first, and then we would come to the table and still separately kind of ink our separate qualifications, and then we would then present our I think we would have a discussion about the firm's qualifications, the presentation, the proposals that are in front of us. Then we could have a chance to go back and tweak our score sheets, and then we would openly add up the score sheets and see where they fall.
Correct.
Can I ask a question? In the evaluation criteria, where, is there any point, it says in addition, materials may be submitted within the proposal, the committee may contact the listed references. Isn't that something we should do? If they give us 5 references, you know, and B, shouldn't they have a contact number? And we call each one of those with a standardized list of questions. If if they submit, we did 5 projects, I wanna know from 5 different people. Is this a company you should run like you're on fire from, or are they great? You know, and then maybe those be scored as well? I don't know if that's just
You
putting
do
more
the
work on
references
it.
after the interviews?
Okay.
It depends.
Yeah, there's gonna, you know, I mean, if you get 100 submittals, it's a lot of legwork, and so at a certain point, that must be done, but I don't think it's at the first pass, when we get the first pile. And it may be that we hopefully don't get haphazard submittals where we have to say, okay, people, we've all read through these, and I'd like to make a motion that firm A just totally missed the mark. They didn't submit a third, they only submitted a third of all the information required. It's obvious that they're woefully unqualified to do the project. Let's remove them from, where's the statement? They box them, they just take them and all, throw them off the table, and then you're on to the next one. And then we'll be down to a certain set, but it's gotta be some pretty blatant criteria in which to do that. Then we start our review, and once we come up with our ranking, if we have 5, we may decide to call, and the next step would be to get the references for the top 4.
So put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, the amount of legwork and the amount of effort, you know, 2 submittals come in, and we're gonna be all over calling them pretty quickly. If we get 10, then we're gonna still only call 4.
Right.
You don't need to call the references if they're not close on the score sheet.
That was the simple way of saying that.
No.
Should have said that first. So did everyone kind of understand how I just roughly went through the process of receiving them? We'll have a scorecard, which is specific to each proposal, so it's very clear and very organized, and very legible, and they can be documented and recorded so that nobody can complain that we didn't do it in due process for the book. system, I saw a lot of different ways to do point systems. This seemed to be simple. We don't want to get into higher math and have to put this in Excel spreadsheet to figure it out. We just want to come up with a simple add of numbers. I think once the next step, Martha, you might have to just, we should try this out. We need to make up a scorecard
Right.
and then try it out, see how it adds up and whether it's too complex or how. And then each of the categories for consistency says highly advantageous, acceptable, or unacceptable. You get 0 points for being unacceptable, you get 1 point for being acceptable, 2 for advantageous, and 3 for highly advantageous. So with that,
Another question I have on that, the algorithm makes any difference on it, but is there any category that would carry more weight, that'd be more attractive to us, that would, the points would be a little bit higher? In other words, if you have it even right across every category.
so when I thought what I did was take, and looking through different qualification packages previously and putting this all together, came up and got this thing organized. Seriously, whether this thing beds out and whether it's understandable for the time I put into it last time needs to be tested. And you're right, it could come out that we all come out and everyone, and magically the score is 72. And every single firm gets a 72 because of the way it was so balancedly even and, you know, no one gave highly advantageous and nobody gave zeros and everyone got 1s and 2s, and by the time you add it up, it's like there's no difference between them. We'd like to have 72, 75, 60, 50, 48. There they are.
Maybe some of the tabs need to be weighted more with, you know,
Right.
general quality,
Right.
maybe doesn't have as many points as previous project
That's what I'm
experience
saying,
carries more
what's
weight, more
Right.
points.
Like what tab might be a little bit more important to us?
I did
What if
not.
they had 5 police stations and 3 of the owners hated?
Hmm.
Well, I wouldn't weigh the police stations as high as I would somebody's done 2 police stations, but they really did the job well.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But maybe we can decide that when we get to that point.
Right.
Kind of, okay, how are we gonna
Well, I
shake
think
that
when we
out?
take and make a cheat sheet and we test this out, we'll see how the numbers add up.
Okay.
And hopefully it's pretty clear, 75 is the most points you can get and 0 is the least, and so you can kind of see the weight. But that isn't something, I didn't get to that last time. I was just trying to get this in an organized.
Just basic idea of what we're gonna be doing, sure.
Yep.
Quick question,
Yeah.
under tab B, previous project experience, there's a line here for CMAT risk delivery method.
I was looking at that myself. I don't know what the general feeling is, the budget's tight for manager at risk, would you agree, or, I mean, I know it's a safer way to go, but and this might not be the time for that discussion either, but.
It may not be, I was just kind of
No,
bringing
I-
it up since it's there.
Right.
And we
I have no
talked-
problem with the CMA risk.
and
You neither?
we've talked about doing, sort of traditional design bid build or CM at risk, and I thought that was still kind of an open-ended question.
It is, I have to remember why there wasn't, yeah, give me. Maybe it's not, it's just in there in a way that's not weighted as heavily because the decision hasn't been made just yet. But obviously, if you're gonna hire somebody and ask them if we're gonna go that route, they've never done it, then that kind of defeats the purpose of getting there.
Right, but if they
We may
select,
not hold it quite so strongly, even though they may have done a couple. They hold over here till the time comes to decide that.
but if they see this in here, they may assume that that's the way we're going.
That's why I think that the high and the low are left out of it, and then you get a point for not having it, or you can state that you're something, and that's why it's not an absolute high or low. Because the decision hasn't been made. So, okay, we'll have to just, think successful management of less than 5 similar projects, 5 million to 20 million, and more than 3, chapter 149, that might, other projects and sustainable buildings or lead experience. It's, something like that. I mean, there's 3 different, there's the sustainability part of that, which is a whole nother animal as to just, you know, a firm that only comes in here and they do, 2 million is the biggest project they've ever done. They either have a bonding issue or they just haven't set up to manage something bigger. And so we're just looking for reasonable size. And likewise, a firm that comes in here and shows us that they've done, 5, 50 million municipal building projects isn't exactly suited for our size project as well. So maybe I think the sustainable lead stuff goes in a different category. Maybe it's not weighted as much. But that's trying to just get a project size and get to the sweet spot of someone understanding our size project and being similar to it as possible. Public safety, building, construction experience, is trying to weigh that. CM at risk delivery method. We have reference checks, but again, that it's in here for something, but it's not something we have to do for everyone if we're doing the approach that.
When you say public safety building, sorry to go back to that, but would you also maybe add in town hall or
Yes, town hall is missing from this.
from that?
Yes. It would be municipal and public safety building. References, project approach. So here, if we're all on tab D, project approach, and it says, proposer provided an excellent response which made appropriate reference to all the items under 4, scope of services, and 5, submission packages. So within the submission package, 5 is what we talked about first, but if you then back up, 4 is a expanded description of what we're really asking for on those pages. 5 is the format, 4 is the actual description, which we'll get to last. And that's how some of these are referring back to, is that there are other sections where we've told them project experience, in terms of qualifications for scope of services, we're telling them what we're looking for in pre-design, what we're looking for in pre-construction phases, and what we're looking for during construction, closeout services, and what we're looking for under all phases of services. So here's the proposed staffing. And
Same thing here, it says public safety facilities.
And
in
so
that first box.
municipal buildings along with public safety. So, and firms that are used to submitting this isn't, someone's doing this for the first time, it's a huge task and a huge learning curve to get to this sort of outline and the repetitive like they get just the front section and then we have our evaluation form. They're reading both what we asked them to do, and they're also reading how things stack up. So it's another way, or a simpler way, or the short form of saying what we previously said once before, in terms of the scope of work, once how we want it organized, and here again, how we're gonna qualify them or rank them. It's said 3 times over.
It's not a trick question. It's not supposed to be a trick question.
No. Not at all. There'll be some calls like, do we have to put 5 municipal projects and 5 public safety projects? Not everyone reads everything the same way. Firm stability, again, strong financial stability and capacity to undertake the project. Awards aren't everything, but the extra effort for a project to be recognized is a good thing. And then the next section probably should be like 6A, because it's a whole different subset from what was above it. If interviewed, then, and this is where we might need to add one more section, but basically then we'll rank them, we'll come up with the numbers, we'll have it, we'll ask them, set up some dates for interviews, we'll have them come in, and interview, and we'll basically be doing the same thing once again. And I think the interview is basically the same scorecard, but slightly different and geared towards, and that's what this language needs to say here, that in the interview, it's again, they're submitting their qualifications in a package that we limited. They have a chance to come and explain, and we have a chance to interact with them, and then we have a chance to sum up and make sure that the people that are actually standing and talking before us match the experience that we're provided. It's not like we're trying to duplicate efforts, but we're trying to have people present more additional or clarified information. But we will need another scorecard for the interview process, which is kind of simplified into one section right here. So we need to put that down, that the interview scorecard qualifications may need to be expanded. So far, so good, everybody? All right. So I'm gonna work on everything up until page 14. Still want everyone to read and submit a full set of edits to the whole thing. And I guess if we could, maybe we'll do a timeline that we wait till the weekend's over and if I can get the first draft back out to everybody, then everyone can review that.
Okay.
Can we put operation of the town, so nobody can cry foul, and, we need to state that the town hall is closed on Fridays. Well, it's shown on the website.
And I'll check through all of that. And I thought I would check with Tracy to see whether they should actually go to her or to me or the committee as a whole.
They get recorded and stamped in by the clerk and piled up, and then you have to divide them into packages and distribute them without anybody, you know, at that point, until everyone gets their own package, they're not,
Right,
they're
right.
gonna be open and stuff. So we're asking for 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How many copies do we really need? And then we get one digital copy, so we don't wanna over,
Can we do 15 though? Should the selectmen get them?
I think, no, I think what we,
Keep it to us.
keep it to us.
And
Yeah.
they'll have access.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
At some level.
During-
If we get
Right,
10
after the opening.
and we weed it down to the top 5, then we can certainly share, each of us, with one selectman and let them borrow our stack. And that's probably the most efficient way. I don't think more paper and.
And if we have electronic version, we can have a,
Yeah, they can
they can
view it.
peek at it.
Yeah. So I'd like to just get to the minimum.
Yeah.
Do we need a site tour? I mean, town hall is, one thing. If this, when this was written, it was an empty lot with a new building on it. Here we have, we could conduct, and it might not be a bad thing to gauge interest. So we should.
Sometimes the questions asked kind of stick with you. Who's got the most, yeah.
Right.
Well, and not everyone likes to ask questions in front of anybody else, but if they show up and have questions, then at least they answer them, and they ask them, and then we have to set up a process where we disseminate them, and, so that adds a whole nother paragraph to this. But I think we should, if we do it, we should do it.
I think we should do it.
Let's just do it.
Have a pre-submission.
You want the questions in writing, just verbal?
Yeah, that's what I meant, is there a whole other talks about, okay, you're gonna show up, it's gonna be open from
Mhm.
8 to 8:30, and, we'll conduct a tour. We'll hold, the time for questions, any and all questions asked in the meeting, any and all questions not asked within the meeting that are directed to A, B, or C must be in writing. You have 2 to 3 days to get your answers in. So the whole other paragraph that gets put in here. Do you have a draft of that? I mean, I know I could make it up, and I know I've read it 100 times, so you could probably find it, but if you had something that just talks about, I can put my hands on it.
It's not hard to create. It's pretty easy to create.
Right.
Something, sorry.
Do it and keep it simple.
Yeah.
Well,
Good.
the questions are supposed to be in writing, so some of it is in here. And I just can copy that over specifically about the site.
Put a limit on how long the visit's gonna go.
Right, and then a minimum, Martha, you'll need to be there and record some information, get people to sign in, kind of thing.
Right.
One of you guys will need to be there to actually tour them through, we'll have to figure out what a good time to tour them. We'll have to remind them of what the police station was, not exactly what it is now, and what town hall then wants to be. And so it's a little understanding of the dire straits of the police station, but that's not really the focus. The focus is to get them in and to show them the bones of this building.
Right.
so the proposed timeline, John, is you, you
Yep.
gotta bang that out. And,
Yep. I got it pretty well drafted here.
Other information, number 8, on page 15.
When you go back, excuse me, when you go back to the selection process, second bullet point, when it says the person or persons, on page 14, the end, and then CC requires that the person, and in parentheses, persons.
Yep.
Is it your preference to have a minimum of 2 people there, and not just 1? So it should say, well, at least 2 people or something? I don't know how, what you, right there. I know you all have talked about that once before.
Yes, that is a good point. That is, the point of the interview is to get the principal, the manager, and the junior person, you know, who's gonna be on our project is what we want. And however they work that out. There are some OPMs that are smaller shop and they do a lot. There are other firms that are big and they kind of divide up the work, and because that's the way they do it. So I'd like not to have a principal come and talk about, you know, Bob and Jane that aren't in the room. We want to see the team.
We need Bob and Jane to talk more than the principal. Because we gotta say how it gels.
Right, it's a big firm.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
get the.
If it was just me coming in and I'm gonna be the OPM, then you only need to see me.
Correct.
Right.
But we want to make that super clear, is the point, right?
Yep, correct. I know firms that don't do that. And then you get what you get.
Just out of curiosity, how binding is that anyway? They could tell you anybody they want that's gonna be on the team, and then, I don't know, that's more of a question than.
Well, I think that's why we're saying that person.
It would have to be.
Has to be at the interview.
Well, no, I understand the interview, but say that they get, we like them, they're great, it's a great team, you know, at the interview, and then they get awarded, and who's to say that they have to.
So we have to do like you do in a construction firm. Okay, if you're gonna switch that team, you gotta interview them before we
Right.
approve that person.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because that's what happens in the world.
I think that's part of the, I could make that as part of the contract, or make that part of signing on the dotted line,
Sure.
and put that also in the fee negotiations, you know.
Mhm.
We're accepting your fee, and the people as presented in qualifications in the interview are who you're providing, and any other persons would have to be would have to be resubmitted and reapproved by the committee and the selectmen, and the firm goes, well. So,
Okay.
at the point of negotiation, we'll have to remember.
Because that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing if someone
They
goes.
get their rocks guys that can present well, they're gonna keep them in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we keep you, right?
What's that?
In the closet, keep you.
Yeah, that's what they keep them. Thank you for that. That's for the gum.
Yeah. Well, it says following interview, the highest ranking firm will be contacted for fee negotiation period, which takes place between the selected firm and one or more representatives of the town. This negotiation will determine whether there will be a fixed fee or an hourly fee, and what the amounts will be. At this time, the construction cost method of payment for the required clerk of the works will be discussed and incorporated into the final agreement. And so maybe there's a sentence about commitment of staff that addresses that, or at least starts to put it in here so that it can be part of the negotiation.
They know that we're
We're gonna-
aware of this, and would,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the whole point, yep. We get to the timeline, so other information. All right, this is like Ginny stuff, this is all.
Right.
The town's standard professional service contract, hold harmless general liability numbers, that's not me, that's.
I'll work on that with Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
We've got that actually, I don't know if it's in your copy, but page 17 here, in the event that a selected OPM firm must replace a staff member, request must be made to the committee.
Yeah, it is there.
it's the last one, there we go. If negotiations can't be reached, with the top firm, then we reserve the right to talk to the second firm. We the tax exempt number?
Yeah, it's in there. I think it maybe changed, I'll check that.
So we didn't, you made a comment about how many we would be interviewed, but we do say down here the 3 finalists. So does that dictate we would at least have 3 interviews? Page says 16, third to the last item.
Where, what pages are it?
16 on this,
Under A, other information, or, oh,
the
all
proposal.
3 finalists.
That, should we be more specific, or is that fine the way it is?
No more than 4. If you can't make your mind over 4, we've got a problem
Yep, okay.
to start with. If you can't pick the top 3, and in terms of this process, I would think we're gonna rank them, we're gonna have a it's not like we've got qualifications, we review them, we go, okay, we picked the top 3, we actually have a numeric ranking that we're gonna come out with, we're gonna be a little ahead of the process, at least on paper.
Let me say, you made the comment that we wanna have how many we wanna interview, a maximum.
Well, you know, I'm
Kinda
not
like
sure.
golf outing.
If,
Golf outing, there's a cutoff, you don't make the cut.
right, so, you know, to sit through 3 interviews and we're already gonna get 19 proposals or maybe we only get 3 proposals.
That's true too.
You know, I just don't know what the market is out there, or the interest, or what else is going on, that makes this project, favorable or not favorable, or the distance from Boston, or is good or bad, or whatever. I don't know, do you have any thoughts? We could say, a minimum of 3, and then we're open to 3 or more.
Yep.
Just play it safe, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, 2 is A and B, and then you're into, well, him versus
Yeah,
her,
yeah.
that's good, that they got this, and you can't quite, in 3, you could say, okay, out of the 3 of them, this guy has the best value for that one, and the other 2 kind of, so you can make a decision. Okay. Now we're into forms, and all these forms, Martha, have to just go with the town, or go with, all right, so then that brings us right back around to number 3 on page 4. So, right, okay, so I got ahead of myself here. Minimum requirements, any firm or individuals considered for the OPM role must meet at least the minimum state mandated qualifications as listed below. It's pretty straightforward, project experience requirements.
That's why we added in down here, it says, their experience plus the individual's experience has to equal the above, not just the firm's.
And I have your edits already, do I not? Did you not send those in an email, or?
Did I send those to you?
You know, I looked for them and I didn't see them.
No, I mean,
I can email it.
Email them to me,
Yeah.
please, because I can try to pick them all up at once. It's gonna be a big task to get through this to some level. I may get to certain sections where I might highlight and say, I've got edited and I just skipped over this because it was too much to get to in time to get it back out to everybody. And
to say municipal building there also on that line again? Say public safety building?
To build on what you were saying, John, as far as not just focusing on the firm, but also the team members, on that second paragraph under note, do you wanna just add, the respondents, do you wanna define that a little bit? You know, somehow to incorporate firm and opposed team members, have to have those bullets,
Yeah.
that way it just covers the whole thing, or is that making it too fine?
We can't pin ourselves into a corner that we put out an advertisement and selection criteria and then find out that there's no such animal out there.
Okay, I was just wondering if that'd be too fine.
But we've said that, it's come up 3 or 4 times now, that is the essence of what we're trying to get at here and put in here so that's clear.
So let that itself out of the interview process and the other process.
Yeah, the first pass is on paper. Do they have the history and can they put together simple qualifications package that looks organized and nicely done? Obviously, if it's half-assed and there's spelling mistakes and stuff like that, they're not the firm for us, but, that's the first pass. The second pass is they get to an interview and you're gonna see them. Does that make sense, or?
Yeah, it does, I didn't know if it was painting ourselves too much into a corner, but I can see where you don't wanna have it overly refined.
We don't know what exactly we're gonna get.
Sure.
If we weren't going through this whole process, we'd probably be having interviews and going out and talking to people and bringing in people for recommendations for which we know, and we've had pre-discussions on why we were bringing them to the table. It's a whole different animal there. It's a whole different process here. Could be a little something better said about on time, on budget. So the scope of services. Read these line by line, we can discuss the merits of doing these. I think the best way to sort of sum up what each one of the pre-design, pre-construction phases might be is when I had shown you on the first meeting that there were several other proposals, which I took one as a basis and then I added others. You could write the dictionary telling them what they're gonna do every day and tell them how they're gonna format their meeting notes. So at some point, the real thing that's missing in here is exactly what what professional sort of guidance the OPM and metrics that they're gonna run for us for cost and program. Are we going to specifically in here ask them to bring a public safety professional in to review? We're gonna ask them for a cost estimator, are we gonna ask them for, you know, what does the OPM bring with them that's in addition?
Well, they do the cost estimating, whereas up in Maine, the architect does it, so somebody does it. If we're doing the same at risk, then the CM does it. In this case, we're probably leaning towards, for the moment, towards the OPM providing their own cost estimate. Some firms have it in-house, some firms use outsource firms that just do that. But they do provide that.
Right, and I would say that even if we have if we're gonna have the CM do the cost estimate, at least in their first, we would have a comparative cost estimate for the first one or two in order to set the basis of understanding that they're, you know, of the right mind, and we're not just having one cost estimate that someone keeps rolling into, that we have a pair of eyes that are checking it. And then once we all understand it, then the movement of that cost estimate should be understood, because we all know the line items by that time, and then we understand what's on the drawings, and the two should match up. But for the early test and the first pass on the budget, it would be good to get two separate opinions, and then, you know.
So, the cost estimating, is this once the designer is selected, or prior to selecting the designer, or we can be looking for the OPM to develop a cost estimate?
That's the crux of what is being asked in terms of, these are quote, pre-design
Oh,
phases.
pre-design,
So we're hiring an OPM,
right.
and what we need the OPM to do is we need them to take the program that we have for the police station, the program that we have for the town hall, and review it. And say, hey, you missed this here. You can't have a planning department in 10 square feet. They need 20.
Okay.
And something was missed. 15 will do.
Bad chance, right?
Right. Or, you know, you've got this here. So that's one. Two, we would wanna hire either have them then run an estimate on a square footage basis, but take into account maybe some of the program that they just reviewed. If we have a program, you know, we've got the program anywhere from, it's gonna be 7,000 to 9,000 square feet, somewhere in there. And some of it's gonna be because we want it, some of it's gonna be because we're gonna have to make some decisions on cost, and hopefully not, but that's just where we're gonna be. So, there's the general assumption, you know, we have plans, and along with the program, we have those diagrammatic plans which were well laid out, and could be commented on. You know, if they have experience with municipal buildings, and especially police stations, then hopefully they're bringing to the table some points like, oh, you gotta remember, you don't have the extra janitor's closet anywhere. Your circulation is wolf, you got 4-foot quarter, you need 5-foot quarter, you can't, you know. So we then better build and check what we're then gonna basically repackage, or they're gonna repackage, do the legwork for selecting the design team, which is something similar to this. We just have a new person that's helping, guiding us through that. Right? This is the heavy lifting for us, is this. We gotta select the right person, and then we gotta get that person to do our work with our understanding and our buy-in, but they're the professional, we're paying them money, they're doing it.
Correct.
But we need to have some general sense of what we're asking them to do. So, for me, we spent 4 years looking at sites, we spent 4 years going through the program, we vetted that out against other comparables, but it was still at a very conceptual high level. You know, we didn't sit down with a group of people and vet every single room, and we didn't then look at the conceptual plan and say, that office at 200 square feet actually works well in that location because it's adjacent to this other one. And we didn't put on the program that the evidence room the evidence review room needs to be next to the evidence storage room. That you shouldn't be having evidence and then walking upstairs around the corner and then getting coffee on the way. You should be, open the door, lock the door, look at the stuff, take the
Unlike
stuff out.
Salisbury.
Put the stuff away.
But that's,
It's long-term storage, that's right.
But that level of understanding partly comes with the designers, hopefully, partly comes from you, partly comes from the public safety code of laying out certain spaces. And that's where we need the professionals to do this, to do that work. So we have conceptual budget that's been sliced and diced 100 different ways. We have a program that's sort of been benchmarked, but has a range to it. And the same thing has to happen in duplicate for the town hall, and that's probably not in here, that there's, you know, we're asking them to perform work for two projects that are related, but essentially separate. What happened to our finding audience?
I think they took their time on it.
If they come late, leave early.
Um,
at any point, I'm sorry, on that previous page, or actually any of these phases, is there a bullet that should address any presentations or any dialogue, updating any other departments or any other town officials? Is that something the OPM would have to be obligated to do, or how does that work? Or should that be addressed?
Again, the chicken and the egg, we're kind of asking them for their means and method and the way they do work, and we would hopefully, they would come back and say, hey guys, the way that we do this is we have 3 phases to this pre-construction. We vet your proposal, we take the initial work that you did, and we study it, and then we come back and we tell you about it. Then we work on it, and then we come up with a final, and we discuss it with you, now we have a package, then we
They
do
have
the.
one point of contact,
And
you know.
that's what they do, so I don't wanna, I don't know, I've seen RFPs that ask you for everything, and I've seen RFPs that are a page for, you know, $100 million project, it all depends on who's running the show. So, but that is the point, and that's why I'm stalling here, is because I slammed this part together. It has the bones, but it doesn't have the essence of what we're talking about, so I don't have clear direction just yet. But those are exactly the kind of thoughts, and those are great thoughts for you guys to help put really in this about, hey, what about, it seems like common sense. And then we need to figure out whether how to just, how to package it, but not, you know, if you ask them for too much, they're gonna think their fee is up in the 15% range. If you ask them for too little, they're gonna come in and they're gonna say, oh, well, this is, I don't have to do much here, I'm gonna give you a lower fee, and we're gonna expect this. We need to happily marry expectations and scope and what we have on the job in order to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and this is a little bit more drawn out, you know, if we were in the private sector, you wouldn't have to spell it out as much, you would be using more or less standards, and you would be sort of pre-qualifying people that you were even asking to give an RFP to. Somebody that, when I get an RFP for a school and they send it out to 15 people, it's kind of like, I'm not gonna bother, they don't know what they're doing. Usually when you get the call and they say, look, we've invited 3 people, they have understood, and they're picking you because they already know that you and you can all do the job. Now we just need to pick one. So then you can put the effort in the proposal in a different way. We're just a different animal in the way we need to openly explain what we're asking for and what we're getting back. As part of the negotiation, I would think that we need to make sure that their scope that they're outlining and their fee come together. That we haven't just picked a qualified firm, and they present a fee, and then we're negotiating some number. We have to understand what's in that.
Did we anywhere ask for them to give us their fee schedule?
No, you're not supposed to.
Not even?
Until after.
No, no,
Okay.
this isn't supposed to be swayed by someone going, God, it's a good fee, let's take it.
Well, I'm not talking about overall fee, I'm just talking about, no, okay.
No, we do mention that the fee will be within line with keeping with the state standards, which is probably published like 8 years ago and is not kind of act with the market, but the state does say if it's a simple project and it's got this amount, then the fee is 4%, and if it's a more difficult project and it's this size, it's 5%, and if it's a very difficult project and it happens to be very big, then the fee is up to 12%. There's some little matrix, but I think it was probably published in 2008 or
Cool.
6.
But it's a guy.
But it's a guide, and it just sets the tone for, hey guys, this isn't that complicated a project, it's not that big of a project, it seems to me that your fee is way up here. And the other thing that we do have to kind of keep in the back of our mind, that there are Mercedes and there are Gremlins, and you get what you pay for. And there may be a firm that has all the bells and whistles and has everything, and you know, they probably come with a slightly higher fee than somebody else that's apparent that they've done smaller projects and they're of smaller size and smaller caliber. So that's not supposed to weigh in, it's gonna be in the back of our minds, but we're gonna do the best job for the town if we pick somebody that we know has done this, that we know we all can work with, that we can talk to, that they can talk to us, and we can get along with, and someone that we feel is a true partner and not just a hired gun to do it. So I guess at the moment, I'm not of the mind just to walk through line item by line item, kind of thinking that we've gotta pull everything together, and maybe this is the one section that I just put in green saying, hey, I haven't touched this yet. And everything else is in here. John
I
does
can
the
help you a lot
schedule,
with that.
you
Yeah.
get the stuff to Ginny that she needs to do and bring that piece together. I think for me, I would go back and read some other, I'd like to reread some other RFQs and see how they outline the scope to then set the parameters for figuring this out.
Yes, exactly.
But if you read it and you have good thoughts, like,
You already have it in there under the all.
Yes, service now,
At all times during the project, the OPM will keep the committee and other town officials informed of all aspects of the project at an appropriate level of detail.
I guess what that's good that's in there, but I guess for my own edification, this document, I'm wondering where it comes down the line, you make your selection, if at all, does it come back and bite you in the ass if something you didn't cover here, is something they can, that where we hire can refer to, well, no, you didn't address that here, so we don't have to do that.
I can't tell you just where there was a disclaimer somewhere that we covered, basically saying that not all duties are necessarily listed in this.
Okay.
I think if they show up with 3 heads and 1 eye, that we're not gonna discount them, we're not gonna select it.
Can I take a picture?
Yeah.
Oh, we bring a towel like that?
It's the nature of the profession, and most of these guys, John, jump in here.
Yeah.
If you asked me off the top of my head what my fee for doing this, and you didn't give me 27 pages, I'd say, how much does it cost? And you'd say, well, we got $5 million for construction. I'd say, okay, $5 million. I'll do it at
In this range.
8%, 7%. You know, if you wanna skinny it, then I could probably do it for 6.25, but I'm not gonna have a lead consultant, I'm not gonna do sustainability, I'm not gonna hire an acoustical, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna give you the bare bones. And I'm gonna hire a hardware consultant that's actually a hardware provider, and I'm gonna sort of do a design build with that, cause I'm not gonna hire somebody. And that's how I'm gonna get down to your fee.
Yep.
So,
There's all sorts of tricks like that. Yeah, but you're right, you come in there, we know the range it's gonna be in, and how's it sound?
yeah, and I think we're also gonna, let them know that we have, architects and people that have been on projects like this before, and we're gonna talk to them during the interview, like, we're not just, none of us here have never done a construction project, we do understand what you do, and, there's a little give and take there. If they feel like they're looking at like 3 people that have never done a project before, they might approach it a little bit different. I'm not saying that they're out of whack, but I think that's of the essence, and that's why we're hiring professional people. They wouldn't have gotten the projects done, and they wouldn't look as nice, and they wouldn't have a bunch of people chasing them if they weren't doing their job. So, that all said, I still think this needs a bunch of work to bring it in line with what we need. I hear what you're saying, and this just isn't, it's not as easily laid out as everything else was in here.
We gotta get it right the first time is what we're trying to
Right,
say.
right.
And And I can help you here, this Eric too, because I put proposals together, I have to respond to like this.
Yeah, and I put, you know, but each proposal is slightly different, which is the
True.
you know, the problem, and even the state work for the DCAM or the school work tries to really keep it on a, they try to keep it on a form. They give you 10 pages, and you have to fill your stuff in every little row, and sometimes you scratch your head, and it's like, you know, they don't leave room for somebody, I'd say like me, that says like, you know, I've done libraries, and I've done dining halls. I just haven't done a student life center, or I haven't done a business school, but I've done everything else on campus, and I've done it in spades, and it's great, but I just can't put it in a stupid box. So now all of a sudden I'm out because I can't just, and the state, the aggravation with the state forms is that what they do, qualifying firms shall have 3 projects within the last 3 years, which are between $25 and $50 million for the, completed for the state. Well, there's like 3 firms in the New England that have done that. So they've just discounted everybody else that's qualified because the rigid experience that they were trying to drive at all of a sudden limited the field. And then they wonder why, when the 3 people show up and the fees are high, because they, you know, that's the way they
continue
do it.
that way because they're the only ones who qualify.
They didn't drink together either the night before, but.
No, and the way their committee works is they see hundreds of projects, they're looking for any excuse where someone didn't spell the word wrong, spell design wrong, and then they'll take it, they throw out the proposal and go on the next one, because they just have, they're doing 5 or 6 proposals a day sometimes. You know, their process is different than ours. So we're trying to be very specific, we're trying to be very open, we're trying to be everything. We're trying not to put ourselves in a box, we're trying to put them in a box, and we're trying to just figure out a way that we can organize without too much difficulty, select the right person.
Right, but back to what JR was saying, the sentence says, however, this does not constitute an exhaustive list of every function the OPM should and will perform during the course of the project, so it's kind of the catch-all.
Right.
If we're taking a fixed fee, they're gonna qualify what they're doing. If we're looking at what your hourly rate is, whether not to exceed.
There will be a proposal submitted before the negotiations start. So we'll have picked a good qualified current firm. Then we will say to them, okay, put together your proposal. They'll submit the proposal, they'll outline exactly what they are and aren't gonna do. And then they'll say, okay, with this, for this scope of work, this is our fee. So we haven't like missed that or haven't coordinated the two. That will happen. Our specific task is to find and pick a qualified firm based on their qualifications.
And we do have 3 people, and you've done some of this to some degree, it sounds like. So
I've been the recipient of the DCAM process.
But get
They
enough
pick
of
the
us to.
people that I work with. So it's done by the designer selection board, and we just, as the user agencies, we just get whomever DCAM gives us.
What I'm saying is that we're not a clean team here, we have a
No,
good team
right,
of
no,
people
no.
understand what goes on, so we're not leaving the rest of you in the lurch.
Oh, no, I'll
we're
be,
doing the right thing.
I'll be the first to tell you.
Yeah.
No, but
You're learning a lot
Yeah,
just
yeah.
from osmosis here.
But you're just as important, maybe on the opposite end of the spectrum, is that you're looking at them for what they're telling you.
Sure.
And you want somebody to come in and seem like they are A, knowledgeable, 2, they're educating you, or they're giving you the points that you, not educating, informing you, and you kinda like the way they're talking to you,
Right.
because you understand it. You know, some guy comes in, and you're like,
Well,
We need him to dumb it down.
And the other thing is, you can assess whether they're blowing smoke at
Yep.
you about public safety buildings.
Right.
I mean,
I'll use a horse analogy, so you know how they measure horses in hands, and it's 1, 2, or 3 hands, and it jumps to the next number. So most horses are 14, 15, 16 hands, and they're 14, 3 hands, or it's 14, 2 hands. And if they're going on telling you how much they know about horses, and they say, and I have a 15 4-hand horse. There's no such thing as a 15 4-hand horse, it's 15 1, 15 2, 15 3. And they say that, it's like, whoops, so they say something in the context of public safety,
safety,
and you
yeah.
go, they missed it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you bring that to the table.
Right. Well, thank God I bring something.
I'm looking at the next one. Decaf coffee and cannolis would be fun.
Take it out of the closet.
Yeah,
well, and you guys wanna know that when you tell them that this is the way you operate and this is how you do stuff.
Sure.
They may have an experience and it may be for Cambridge.
Well, I was
and
gonna say,
that's not-
in Newbury's proprietary, way we do things,
Right,
you know,
right.
so, yeah.
We have a specific way we do a lot of
Absolutely.
different things that are different from other departments, and
Right.
what works for Newbury might not work for Rowley or Salisbury, and, we need somebody in there that understands that.
Right.
Each one has a culture,
Right.
and that's what you're
That's
trying
a
to
good
And
word.
who's willing to listen to that and not impose what they've done.
Well, we've
It's not
done
cookie cutter.
30
Right.
like this, and this is the way it is.
And this is
Well,
what you
no,
should
that doesn't
have.
work for us.
Right.
Well, no, that's not the way we do business.
It's one thing if it doesn't meet the state code,
Right.
Right.
and,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
or it may not meet the state code if you kind of go about it this way, we need to listen to
Mhm.
that, but, you're right.
But there's a lot to be said for, we hate, one of the phrases that we hate, is, well, that's the way we've always done it. And it's
It's a statement of a loser.
Yep, and so, to that end, I mean, they have somebody who has the experience, you can say, yeah, we see how you've done it like this, but there's a better way, and be open to that, I mean, we'd love to have that too,
Well, you get that from, you're visiting other
Exactly.
locations, they just go to Salisbury.
They have an
They're
OPM,
not open.
well, through a selection process, they can bring some of those nuances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what they've
yeah.
experienced.
Well, everything's shared from experience, and you can have something to gauge from,
Yep.
and say, oh, it's different, never thought of that. And I'm sure Tom said some things to you over time that you
Oh, yeah.
could consider.
We can't repeat them at this table.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah. Should see the look in his face when he saw me walk in the room, he said, you're here.
Can we identify one more police station that's fairly recent that would be good just to do a drive-by or look around?
Don't say drive-by.
Here's the list I did pull together for us,
Oh,
to
excellent.
help us out.
Yeah.
Situate just opened one.
Situate did?
Yes, it's a combined police and fire.
How old is
Which one?
Situate.
Situate? Oh, when did they do that?
Is it really that old?
Yeah, it's open this.
Rockport's really nice.
Because Situate's doing a lot of stuff.
Yes,
I didn't know
they
that.
are.
Yeah, okay.
We have a house that's on.
Oh, so you know, yeah. Yeah, you're paying that,
Oh, yeah.
This.
They're doing a middle school also. Yeah.
Where's Dayton?
That's a good question.
what,
Isn't that south of
what,
Boston?
Situate?
Dayton.
Dayton?
Dayton,
Heard.
Dayton, Hoboken.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's interesting when you ask me about population, and from being around the state, I knew a lot of these towns, but I'm surprised at what some of these towns are spending for the size population they have. Of course, Orleans, like Salisbury, has a very transient population, so they need a bigger station. But, Millis, how many people would have this town?
Just
6,700.
under
Yeah.
7,000.
Yeah, so Millis is spending, $9 million.
That was a combined fire and police. It wasn't just the.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right, that's why.
And I went on to, because some of the costs kind of surprised me.
I remember that now
Why?
after I said that,
Yeah.
yes. And then, I think you can find a couple of, or a number of repeat OPMs and contractors too, so we'll probably see some of these people.
Littleton's not that far,
No,
that's.
and that's kind of in line.
Approximately ours.
Yep, yep. West Boylston is also. And that's just finished up. Littleton's got a few years on it, but relative.
Dayton would be good, you could figure out.
Oh my God, look at Orleans, are you kidding me?
That's why I was using that reference.
Holy crap.
Well, that's interesting, if you look at Orleans, for 5,000 people, 11 million, and Weston has 11,000 people, and spent 11 million.
But the thing is too, what's interesting, what's proprietary is Orleans, it's, ocean, it's seaside, and you got transient,
It kind of fits in
It's like
with
a golf
what's-
course.
That's right, it's a bigger population
Yeah.
in the summer.
Don't
and some of the proprietary stuff we have is a 10-mile
They could
radius,
have
we go, they.
25,000 people in the summer.
What's that?
Yeah.
Plus, they could have 5,000, they could have 6,000 people just pass through.
Right.
That's what I'm
Orleans on a
saying.
daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, in
That's
summer,
Yeah.
so that's probably what's
I used to live up in Wells, Maine for a number of years before I moved down here again, and it was the same way.
Same here.
There's only 4,000 or 5,000 people here, but it was 30,000 people
Yeah,
there during the
yeah.
summer.
Oh, so it's Situate.
Actually, put this together, I was just trying to put my fingers on it.
Yeah, and if we can, I put the link to what they had to read about, maybe get more
That'd be
information.
Yeah, just as an FYI, the North Brookfield one,
Yes.
which is 4,600 people for $11 million, we wound up building it on a brownfield, so
Ah.
Interesting.
that's why it's, on a, what happened to hazardous waste.
Oh,
That's why it costs.
That's why the cost is up. Now, I'm looking at it, $11 million, so
Mm.
why?
I didn't think, I know North Brookfield really well, I was a little bit surprised at that too.
Because it came out to like 1,300, 1,375 per square foot, and I said, whoa, why?
The fact that their offices are growing another year.
Yeah,
doesn't make it
exactly.
more-
And everybody has those 3 eyes now.
Yeah.
So,
So, but you'll see some names here that are familiar in the OPM world that I'm familiar with.
and I can get dates if anybody's interested. Situate is running open houses for their new station, so.
Oh, good, okay.
That's called bragging.
No, I just want, I haven't seen it yet, I wanna see where my taxes are going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the library, well, that's not done yet, but
It's getting close.
it is, yes, yeah. Well,
Because
they-
Castanier's doing that too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, they got that one too, yeah.
All right, because there's gonna be a renovation and addition, and they wanna tearing it down, and it's,
Well, it's the best thing to do.
yeah.
Um,
Once they started renovating, they realized,
So-
they tear it down.
John, you're gonna send me your edits electronically.
Yep.
I'm gonna overhaul, you haven't made any edits yet, Mike, have you?
I haven't, no, it's
So
waiting for.
I'm gonna take as much of a pass as I can get to incorporate as much of this. I will then send it to you so that you can quickly send it out to everybody. Everybody will then use that as the copy to take another read on. If there's something in red or green or highlight, somehow highlighted, because there may be a section I didn't get to. And then I propose that we meet next Thursday, same time, same place if possible. Or we at least meet next Thursday to advance this to a copy that is hopefully 90% there, that we can agree on 90% of it, and then maybe there's a hard focus on that scope language. Does anybody wanna take a shot at maybe just making an Excel spreadsheet that takes the, criteria? George, you got your hands, you got both hands raised. Good job.
No, that's it,
That's the last person I thought would do it.
I wanna forewarn anyone from me is gonna be a longhand. I tried.
It's just a real simple, that takes the evaluation and says, okay, tab A, tab B.
I can do that, I can do it.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And also, as far as the edits, I just want to let everybody know, I'm claiming punctuation, that's it, that's my contribution. If there's a period out of place, that's me, all right? 'Cause I want to contribute to the edits here, so,
Yes, you
all the other stuff I don't understand.
If they could fit on one page, I think that's a good criteria. And, it doesn't, you don't have to run the formula, it's just, it has to print out visually so that people can pencil in and then that would be good to have, and then take a stab at, just trying to add up some numbers. I guess if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. 3 times 6 is 18. So there's a maximum point if we have, if someone gets a 3 on everything. So it's not gonna be, it's not super high or math, we're not trying to add it all up, And maybe the highest score should be 30, and then there's a way that, so,
So you can't do fractional score?
Take that job away from us.
let's,
2.37.
that's something to think about, think about how you might
Yeah.
score this and where the emphasis might be. But if there's 30 points and we get people that are 28, 27, and then we get 21s, 22s, and we get an 18, that would be great to clearly set the path. And it would be nice if when we all do this separately, that, that we're not too far off, or we shouldn't be too far off.
Can we, this might be overkill, but, okay, we set this up, we got our metrics set up, and the algorithms for scoring. Is it possible, do we have a test one, like, is there just a package that we could just say, here, everyone just score this and just to see how it works, just do a, this one that's already you already have it on file someplace.
I do have one, but I would think that if we distributed that, and then they knew that we looked at that, and then other people knew that we
Oh,
looked
no, not one that would be I'm talking about just,
Just a proposal.
yeah, Yes, I mean, maybe we're just, it's not gonna, you won't find anything that'll fit our criteria.
I might have, well.
Get something close, I'm just saying, just to see how it flows, just to see if we like it, work out the bugs with a test case. Is that beneficial or
I like the one I
not?
did at the university. That was when I worked with Al. I did one where I did all the interviews for those two projects and set up that scoring system. Look at how I did that. Okay.
So I'll wait before I set up my spreadsheet till I,
Well, your spreadsheet should be a slam dunk of the tables.
all right.
Right.
And then the question should be, should we change the points so that one or two of these sections is the premium
Mhm.
and the rest are more standard?
Yeah,
That's the summary. But I do have a CM selection that I'd like just to double check, because it does have, it's pretty straightforward. It's like you're doing an interview for anything. It's almost like you guys are interviewing for a rookie, there's certain sort of
that's what I'm trying to like
covering
it
the bases.
into. We prorate our sections that we think are more important to us than,
Right.
so.
Like everybody should score 3s on the last section there, the standardized forms.
Right.
So that shouldn't be weighted more heavily than,
Right.
Should
have the equal
prior
value
experience with
then.
public safety
Right.
buildings.
Right.
Shouldn't be equal.
Right, that's a check the box kind of
Right.
score, where another one, you're really getting the meat of it, maybe it's worth 5 to 6 points.
Right.
And by having 6 points means you could give a 6 and you could give a 4, and you've really started to separate, because that's what we need to do. That's the thinking. And I just laid it out, I didn't give any thought to, I was just trying to do it,
Starting.
Right.
3210.
That's a good base.
What's up, Martha?
All right, so getting back to meeting, this room is free next Thursday evening, if you wanna set it up. Same
Sorry,
time,
on my
same place?
phone.
Yeah, let's call them in the office.
What's the date? It's
13th.
So Martha, do you want me to send you my
It's
fault?
it's Thomas Jefferson's birthday, I'm sorry.
Right.
Can't
Where are we
do
going?
that night.
Here, I guess. Well, it looks a bit Martha.
Does he need any?
Thomas Jefferson celebration.
I think it is.
That's changed, I'll tell you.
Right.
Let's start to that, and I'll double check first thing in the morning when I get to the office and double check on something else.
Okay, yeah, just let me know, I won't post it until tomorrow, or reserve the room until tomorrow morning anyway.
Already accepted what you sent, so. Already accepted.
We may leave you with that
I
clause.
Eric, do you want me to send Martha the highlights that I had from the Salisbury walkthrough?
Yes, and I think without too much effort, Martha, if you could bullet point them, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I was gonna bullet point them there.
You're gonna type them up.
I'm gonna type them up and bullet point them.
Okay, that would save Martha a lot of work then.
That would be super, thank you.
And I think it's fair to say that what we learned last week was more for the design side of things, but
But-
exclusively.
Yeah, but
Right, but it's-
we're gonna be interviewing people that are gonna be showing us picture of police stations. It's good that we go see one and get firsthand, and if there was something there that you're like, what the hell is that? And now people are gonna be showing us that, because that's an important part. Here's a chance to learn, and it's also, if that was a good tour, there are other people from the town that need to go over there and see that as well, so the level of expectation.
And we had 2 of the folks that were here, and a third individual who came with us also.
Right.
Yeah.
So the public did participate in the walkthrough.
Good.
Yeah, that was great. The chief was,
Tom was very
yeah,
thorough.
he was
Yeah,
very
he was fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, he just lived it, I mean, he should be, and
Yeah.
sometimes the problem with this is that you're an expert when you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you
So
gotta learn
it's
how
strong
to
on
get
what they
there.
already did.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add or propose? Got a lot of work to do.
I just wanna say the RFQ for something put together a year ago holds up pretty good under, when I'm using this against it, so thank you for putting that together.
Yeah.
Well, I did slam it together, but it was a fair amount of work previously. I thought we were almost,
You thought you were there.
not quite.
And do we have copies of the program and the work that was done before, that we can take a look at?
Martha's got to set up a Dropbox, right, Martha?
Yeah,
Can we do that?
gotta set that up, and then we can put some of the
I'm
forms.
gonna give Martha a thumb drive. I will,
Let's decide, because there's so much stuff, we should decide which
Yeah, the
ones.
program, I mean,
I showed you,
There's so many
Yeah,
I
iterations.
showed you the files that first night. And and I've got, what I showed you, I've got, well, okay, so I probably showed you about 30 different files. Of that, I probably have 300 to 400 files on my hard drive of all the stuff that's been done in all the different,
And just, is there a final iteration of the
So-
program?
there needs to be,
There is a police.
yeah, there's a, no, I have a town hall, I have a police, and I even have a fire program. Then I have a budget, which has been,
Decimated?
yeah, it's hacked at it quite a few times. It's worse than a Chinese menu. And, okay, so I'll go through that, and I think you disseminated the police station, design guidelines previously, so I can get the 5 files.
Yeah. Just at some point in the process, if it's available,
Yep.
just like take a look at it.
So you should see the final presentation or recommendation that was made to the board and selectmen on the
That's-
6.5 million. You should get the 2 program
It's all
Excel
interested in the
spreadsheets.
history.
Yep, and then, you know, we're beyond the actual deficiencies of the existing police station.
Yeah.
And if you ask me, I'd have to go back and read the 2012 report from May 5th or whatever. Right, we're all past that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the only other subfolder that I think we would post on Dropbox is I might give you 2 or 3 other examples of RFQs in which that if you were kind of thinking this section isn't quite right, you could quickly read through those, find the section and sort of see how they wrote it for their project. That make sense to everybody?
No, it's good.
So I got a lot of heavy lifting to get something done by Monday to get it back out to you. We've got a confirmed meeting for next Thursday. John, you've got work to do
Yep.
with the schedule. And if you could also take a double read on the scope.
First couple pages, yep.
Everyone will wait till they get their next draft and then jump on it for next Thursday. You're gonna do a scorecard. Good.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?